The ice plains of Pluto stretched endlessly beneath the geodesic dome of New Horizon, humanity's final outpost in the Milky Way. Captain Lena Voss stood at the observation deck, watching the distant sun, a pale dot barely distinguishable from the stars that carpeted the void. Her reflection in the reinforced glass showed a woman hardened by decades of deep space travel, sharp cheekbones, steel-gray eyes, and the kind of weathered confidence that came from commanding vessels at the edge of known space. "Final systems check complete, Captain," reported her first officer, Commander Eric Thorne, his voice carrying the slight accent of Europa's underwater cities. "The Icarus is ready for the Andromeda jump." Lena nodded, her fingers drumming against the rail. The Icarus was humanity's most advanced vessel, equipped with the latest iteration of the quantum fold drive, technology that could bend space-time itself, allowing near-instantaneous travel between galaxies. After centuries of expanding through the Milky Way, establishing colonies on thousands of worlds, humanity had finally reached the limits of their home galaxy. Pluto's New Horizon represented the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. "Remind me of the mission parameters," Lena said, though she knew them by heart. "Andromeda Galaxy, Sector 7 Alpha. Intelligence suggests a cluster of potentially habitable worlds approximately 2.3 million light-years from our current position. We're to establish initial contact protocols and assess colonization viability." Eric paused, consulting his tablet. "The quantum fold drive should make the journey in approximately 47 minutes. Lena turned from the window. New Horizon bustled with activity below, scientists, engineers, and support staff preparing for humanity's greatest leap. The colony had been built into Pluto's largest crater, its domed sections connected by atmospheric tunnels that glowed with bioluminescent lighting. After the successful colonization of every habitable world in the Milky Way, Pluto had become more than just a research station. It was a symbol of human ingenuity and determination. "Any word from the other survey teams?" she asked. "The Prometheus reported successful fold entry 3 days ago, bound for the Magellanic Clouds. The Titan is still in preparation for their jump to Triangulum." Eric's expression grew serious. "We're the first to attempt Andromeda, Captain. The longest fold jump in human history." The weight of that responsibility settled on Lena's shoulders. She had commanded exploration missions to the galactic rim, had been present for the first successful colonization of Proxima Centauri, and had led the survey that discovered the mineral-rich worlds of the Orion Arm. But this was different. This was humanity's first true step beyond their home galaxy. "Assemble the crew," she ordered. "It's time." The Icarus hung in Pluto's thin atmosphere like a silver needle, its hull gleaming with the specialized alloys that allowed it to survive the stresses of fold space. At 800 meters long, it was designed for long-range exploration, equipped with everything needed to sustain its crew of 20 for months or even years in deep space. The ship's central section housed the quantum fold drive, a marvel of engineering that manipulated the fundamental forces of reality. Dr. Sarah Chin, the mission's chief scientist, ran her final calculations as the crew took their positions. "Fold coordinates locked in," she announced from the bridge. "We're looking at a 93% probability of successful translation." "And the other 7%? asked Lieutenant Marcus Webb, the ship's navigator. "Let's hope we don't find out," Sarah replied grimly. Lena settled into the captain's chair, feeling the familiar hum of the ship's systems beneath her. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. These were the best of the best, volunteers who had trained for years for this moment. The observation screens showed Pluto falling away beneath them, New Horizons' lights growing smaller until they were just another glimmer in the darkness. "All stations report ready," Eric announced. "Dr. Chin, initiate the fold sequence," Lena commanded. The quantum fold drive powered up with a sound like reality tearing. The ship's hull groaned as space-time began to bend around them. On the main screen, the stars began to stretch and distort, their light shifting toward the blue end of the spectrum as the Icarus accelerated beyond the speed of light. The sensation was indescribable, like being pulled through a tunnel of liquid starlight, while simultaneously being everywhere and nowhere at once. "Fold drive at 90%, Sarah reported, her voice tight with concentration. Approaching translation threshold. The stars outside had become streams of light, and the ship shuddered as it pushed against the barriers of normal space. Lena gripped her chair's armrests, feeling the familiar vertigo that came with fold travel. No matter how many times she'd done this, the sensation never became comfortable. 100%. Translation in 5, 4, 3, 2. The universe exploded into chaos. Alarms screamed throughout the Icarus as the ship tumbled through space, its hull groaning under stresses it was never designed to handle. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red, and the main screen showed nothing but swirling cosmic debris and unfamiliar stars. "Damage report!" Lena shouted over the cacophony. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7 sealed," reported Chief Engineer Kozlov, his Russian accent thick with stress. "Quantum full drive is offline, completely fried. We're running on backup power. Navigation is down," Webb added, his hands flying over his controls. "I'm getting readings I've never seen before. These stellar configurations, they don't match any known star charts." Lena's mind raced. The fold jump had clearly gone wrong, but how wrong? "Dr. Chen, what's our status?" Sarah's face was pale as she studied her instruments. "Captain, according to these readings, we're not in the Andromeda Galaxy. We're not in any galaxy I can identify. The quantum resonance patterns are completely alien." "Meaning?" "Meaning we're further from home than any human has ever been. Possibly further than any human was ever supposed to be." The ship's tumbling gradually slowed as the automated stabilizers engaged. Through the observation windows, Lena could see they were in some kind of stellar nursery, vast clouds of gas and dust illuminated by the birth of new stars. But there was something wrong with the light, something that made her eyes water when she looked at it directly. "Captain," Webb's voice was hushed with awe. "You need to see this." The main screen flickered to life, showing a magnified view of the space ahead. There, hanging in the void like a jewel against the cosmic backdrop, was a structure that defied comprehension. It was clearly artificial, a city of impossible geometry that seemed to twist and fold in on itself. Spires of what looked like crystalline metal reached out in all directions, connected by bridges that curved through dimensions the human eye couldn't quite follow. "My God!" Eric breathed. "What is that?" "It's a city," Lena said, though the words felt inadequate. "But not built by human hands." The structure was vast, easily the size of Earth's moon, and it pulsed with a soft, organic light that shifted through colors that didn't exist in human perception. As they watched, parts of the city seemed to phase in and out of existence, revealing glimpses of even more complex structures beneath. "There's a planet," Sarah announced, her voice tight with excitement. "Approximately 40,000 kilometers beyond the city. Class M by our readings, atmosphere, liquid water, suitable gravity." "Any signs of life?" Lena asked. "The planet shows definite biosignatures. As for the city..." Sarah paused, studying her instruments. "I'm detecting energy patterns that suggest active technology, but no communication signals we can decode. If there's intelligence behind this, it's not trying to talk to us." The ship drifted closer to the mysterious structure, its hull creaking softly in the silence. The city's architecture became more detailed as they approached, towers that seemed to grow like organic things, surfaces that reflected light in impossible ways, and what looked like transportation conduits that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. "Captain," Kozlov's voice came through the comm system. "I need to report something. The radiation readings near that city, they're off the charts. Not harmful to us, but it's like nothing I've ever encountered. It's as if the structure is generating its own form of energy." Lena considered their options. The Icarus was badly damaged, its full drive destroyed, and they were lost in an unknown region of space with no way to contact Earth. Their life support systems were functioning, but they had limited supplies. The alien city represented both an opportunity and a threat. "Dr. Chen, what's the safest approach to the planet?" "We could use the city as a gravitational anchor," Sarah replied. "Plot a course that takes us around its outer perimeter and then down to the planet's surface. But Captain, I have to advise caution. We have no idea what we're dealing with here. Noted. But we need supplies, and we need to make repairs. That planet is our best option. Lena turned to her crew. All hands prepare for planetary approach. We're going to take a closer look at our new neighborhood. As the Icarus began its approach, the city's details became even more striking. The structures weren't just buildings, they were alive in some fundamental way, shifting and adapting as the ship passed by. Lights that might have been windows or energy conduits followed their progress, and for a moment, Lena had the unsettling feeling that they were being observed. Captain, Webb said quietly, I'm detecting movement within the city. Large-scale architectural changes, as if the structure is responding to our presence. The thought sent a chill down Lena's spine. Whatever had built this city, it was far beyond human understanding. And they were about to land on its doorstep. The planet loomed ahead of them like a blue-green marble shot through with silver veins. Its continents were arranged in patterns that seemed almost too perfect to be natural, and its cloud formations moved in spirals that suggested a complex but stable weather system. 2 small moons hung in its sky, their surfaces covered in what looked like geometric patterns. Initial atmospheric analysis complete, reported Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the mission's xenobiologist. Oxygen-nitrogen mix, slightly higher pressure than Earth's standard. Temperature ranges from subtropical to temperate across the main continent. It's almost too perfect. Lena studied the readings with growing unease. After decades of planetary exploration, she'd learned to be suspicious of worlds that seemed too hospitable. Nature rarely created perfect conditions without some underlying complexity or danger. What about the life signs? She asked. Extensive plant life, definitely carbon-based. I'm detecting what might be animal life, but the energy signatures are unusual. Some of the readings suggest organisms with metabolic processes I don't recognize. The Icarus descended through the planet's atmosphere, its hull heating as it encountered the upper layers of gas. The ship's engines stuttered occasionally, damage from their disastrous full jump, but Kozlov's repairs were holding. Below them, the planet's surface revealed itself in breathtaking detail. The continents were covered in forests of impossible beauty. Trees that seemed to be made of crystal and organic matter grew in perfect geometric patterns, their branches reaching toward the sky in fractal spirals. Rivers of silver liquid, not water, but something that moved with the same fluid grace, wound between hills covered in vegetation that shifted color with the light. There, Eric pointed to a clearing near what looked like a cluster of natural spires. That looks like a suitable landing site. Lena nodded. The clearing was roughly circular, bordered by the crystal trees and what appeared to be natural rock formations. More importantly, it was far enough from the alien city to provide some measure of safety while close enough to the planet's energy signatures to potentially help them repair their ship. Take us down, Lieutenant Webb. The landing was rougher than usual, the ship's damaged systems struggling to compensate for the planet's gravitational field. The Icarus settled onto the crystalline surface with a grinding sound that made everyone wince. Through the observation windows, they could see their new world in all its alien glory. The sky was a pale jade color, and the 2 moons were visible even in daylight. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy, and the trees around their landing site pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Atmospheric readings confirm it's safe to breathe, Tanaka reported. But I'm detecting trace elements that don't exist on Earth. Nothing harmful, but we should be cautious about long-term exposure. Lena stood, her decision made. Assemble an away team. Dr. Chen, Dr. Tanaka, Commander Thorne, and Lieutenant Webb. Full environmental suits until we know more about the local conditions. As the team prepared for their first expedition, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The alien city hung in the sky above them like a second moon, its structures still shifting and changing. Whatever intelligence had built it, she was certain it was aware of their presence. The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss, and Lena stepped onto the surface of an alien world. The ground beneath her feet was neither rock nor soil, but something that seemed to be a hybrid of both. It was solid enough to support her weight, but it had an organic quality that made her skin crawl. First human footsteps on an extragalactic world, Eric said over the comm. How does it feel, Captain? Like we're trespassing, Lena replied honestly. The away team spread out, each member focused on their area of expertise. Sarah took readings of the local electromagnetic fields, while Tanaka collected samples of the surrounding vegetation. Webb worked to establish a communications link with the ship, and Eric kept watch for any signs of danger. The crystal trees were even more impressive up close. Their trunks were translucent, revealing complex internal structures that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. The branches formed perfect mathematical patterns, and the leaves, if they could be called leaves, were thin sheets of what looked like living glass. These aren't trees, Tanaka said in wonder. They're some kind of hybrid organism. Part plant, part mineral, part something I can't identify. The energy patterns suggest they're connected to each other through some kind of root network. A planet-wide neural network? Sarah asked. Maybe. Or maybe something even more complex. As they explored the clearing, Lena noticed that the local wildlife was unlike anything she'd ever encountered. Small creatures that looked like living jewels flitted between the trees, their wings creating musical tones as they moved. Larger organisms moved through the underbrush, things that seemed to be part animal, part machine, part pure energy. Captain, Webb's voice crackled through the calm. I'm picking up some kind of transmission. It's not coming from the city, but from somewhere beneath the planet's surface. Lena felt her pulse quicken. What kind of transmission? I'm not sure. It's not electromagnetic, not quantum. It's something else entirely. And it's getting stronger. The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate with a low, almost musical hum. The crystal trees pulsed more brightly, and the air itself seemed to thicken with energy. In the distance, Lena could see lights beginning to appear beneath the surface, a vast network of illumination that spread across the continent like a circulatory system. Whatever's down there, Sarah said, her voice tight with excitement and fear. It's waking up. The alien city in the sky pulsed once, twice, and then began to descend toward the planet's surface. Its impossible architecture unfolded like a flower blooming in reverse, revealing structures within structures, each more complex than the last. Back to the ship, Lena ordered. Now. But as they turned to retreat, the crystal trees around them began to move. Not swaying in the wind, but actually moving, their roots pulling free from the ground as they repositioned themselves. The clearing was changing, walls of living crystal rising from the earth to form a natural amphitheater with the Icarus at its center. We're trapped, Eric said, his hand moving to his weapon. No, Lena realized, watching the graceful movements of the crystal formations. We're being invited. The crystal amphitheater continued to grow around them, its walls rising like organic architecture until they reached nearly 50 meters in height. The Icarus sat in the center of this natural cathedral, its hull gleaming against the translucent surfaces that surrounded it. The away team stood frozen, watching in awe as the planet itself seemed to reshape its surface. The energy readings are off the charts, Sarah reported, her voice barely above a whisper. Whatever's happening, it's drawing power from the planet's core. Above them, the alien city continued its descent, its impossible geometry becoming more detailed as it approached. Lena could see now that it wasn't just a city, it was some kind of vessel, a ship of incomprehensible design that had been waiting in orbit for their arrival. Captain, Kozlov's voice crackled through the calm from the ship. I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the local area. And something else, our systems are being scanned. Something is trying to interface with our computer networks. The implications of that statement hit Lena like a physical blow. If the alien intelligence could access their systems, it would have complete information about humanity, about Earth, about everything they built across the galaxy. Kozlov, initiate Communication Protocol 7. Full isolation of all computer systems. Nothing gets in or out without my authorization. Already done, Captain. But whatever's trying to connect, it's not malicious. It's almost like it's asking permission. The crystal walls around them pulsed with increasing intensity, and the musical hum that had been emanating from the ground grew louder. It wasn't unpleasant. In fact, it was almost hypnotic, like a lullaby sung by the planet itself. Look! Tanaka pointed toward the center of the amphitheater. The ground was opening, not cracking or breaking, but folding back like flower petals to reveal a shaft of soft, blue-white light. The light pulsed in rhythm with the planet's hum, and as they watched, something began to rise from the depths. It was a platform, made of the same crystal material as the trees, but shaped into a perfect circle about 10 meters in diameter. As it reached ground level, the light began to coalesce into a more solid form, a pillar of energy that gradually took on the suggestion of a humanoid shape. First contact, Eric breathed. The energy being, for lack of a better term, seemed to study them with senses they couldn't comprehend. It had no visible features, but Lena felt the weight of its attention like a physical presence. When it spoke, the words formed directly in their minds rather than through any audible sound. Welcome, travelers from the Spiral Arm. We have been waiting for you. Lena stepped forward, her training taking over despite the extraordinary circumstances. I am Captain Lena Voss of the Earth vessel Icarus. We mean no harm. Our ship was damaged during a full jump, and we are lost. We know. We felt your arrival, felt the disturbance in the quantum foam as you crossed the barriers between realities. You are not lost, Captain Voss. You are found. Found by whom? She asked, though she suspected she wouldn't like the answer. We are the architects. We have been watching your species since you first learned to shape metal and fire. We have seen your expansion across your galaxy, your hunger for knowledge and new worlds. We have been waiting for you to develop the technology to reach us. Sarah stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. You've been watching us? For how long? Time moves differently for us than for you. What you call millennia, we experience as moments. We have watched many species make this journey. Some we guide to enlightenment. Others. The being paused, and Lena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the alien atmosphere. Others prove unworthy of the knowledge we can offer. What kind of knowledge? Lena asked. The knowledge of what lies beyond your three-dimensional reality. The knowledge of how to transcend the limitations of matter and energy. The knowledge of how to become something more than what you are. The alien city had settled onto the planet's surface in the distance, its spires now reaching toward the sky like a metallic forest. From this new vantage point, Lena could see that it was even larger than she'd initially thought, a metropolis that could house millions of beings, though she saw no signs of individual inhabitants. Our city is our collective consciousness, the architect explained, apparently reading her thoughts. We are individuals, but we are also one. We build our structures with our thoughts, shape reality with our will. This is what we can teach you, if you prove worthy. And if we don't? Eric asked. Then you will remain here, on this world, until your biological forms fail. Your ship will become part of our city, and your knowledge will be added to our collective understanding. This is the fate of all who find us unprepared. The crystal walls of the amphitheater began to glow more brightly, and Lena realized they were trapped in more ways than one. Whatever the architects were, they had the power to manipulate reality itself. Fighting them would be not just futile, but potentially catastrophic. What do we have to do? She asked. You must prove that your species is capable of growth beyond its current limitations. You must demonstrate that you can transcend the violence and chaos that marks your early development. You must show us that you can become something worthy of the knowledge we possess. How do we prove that? By facing the trials we have prepared. By showing us that you can work together, think beyond your individual survival, and make the difficult choices that true evolution requires. The platform in the center of the amphitheater began to expand, creating a pathway that led toward the alien city. As they watched, the city's spires began to reconfigure themselves, creating what looked like a series of chambers and passages designed for human-sized beings. Your crew will be tested separately and together. Some trials will challenge your intellect, others your morality, still others your ability to adapt to realities beyond your current understanding. Those who succeed will be transformed. Those who fail will die, Lena finished. Death is a primitive concept. They will become part of something greater, their consciousness absorbed into our collective understanding. In a sense, they will achieve a form of immortality. The other members of the away team looked to Lena for guidance. She was their captain, their leader, and the decision would ultimately be hers. But she also knew that refusing might mean not just their deaths, but the end of any chance for their species to grow beyond its current limitations. "Do we have a choice?" she asked. "There is always a choice. You can remain here, on this world, and live out your natural lifespans. We will not harm you, but neither will we help you. Your ship will remain damaged, your fold dry beyond repair. You will become the first human colony in this region of space, and the last." Lena looked at her crew, seeing the fear and uncertainty in their eyes. But she also saw something else: curiosity, determination, and the same spirit of exploration that had driven humanity to the stars in the first place. "If we succeed," she said, "what happens to humanity? What happens to Earth? Your species will be elevated, given the knowledge to transcend its current limitations. Your wars will end, your suffering will cease, and your people will join the community of transcended beings that exists beyond the boundaries of normal space and time. And if we fail? Then your species will remain as it is, bound to its three-dimensional reality, limited by its physical forms, eventually destined to destroy itself as so many others have done." The weight of that responsibility settled on Lena's shoulders like a physical burden. The choice wasn't just about their own survival, it was about the future of all humanity. Every person who had ever lived, every dream that had ever been dreamed, every achievement that had ever been made, all of it balanced on the decision she was about to make. She looked at her crew one more time, seeing the trust in their eyes, the faith they had in her leadership. Then she turned back to the architect. "We accept your challenge." The city of the architects defied every assumption Lena had about architecture and space. As the away team walked along the crystal pathway, the structures around them shifted and flowed like living things, creating passages and chambers that seemed to appear and disappear according to some unknowable logic. The material beneath their feet was warm and slightly yielding, more like walking on living tissue than on any kind of traditional building material. "Each of you will face trials suited to your individual nature," the architect explained as they walked. "But you will also face challenges that require your cooperation. Success in one area does not guarantee success in others." "What happens to the rest of our crew?" Lena asked, thinking of the 17 people still aboard the Icarus. "They will face their own trials in due time. But first, you 5 must prove that your species has the potential for growth. You are the leaders, the ones who chose to explore the unknown. If you cannot transcend your limitations, how can we expect others to do so?" The pathway led them to a vast chamber that seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. The walls, if they could be called walls, were covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly, geometric forms that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. In the center of the chamber stood 5 pedestals, each glowing with a different color of light. "Dr. Chen," the architect's voice echoed in Sarah's mind, "you who seek to understand the fundamental nature of reality. Your trial awaits." Sarah approached the first pedestal, which pulsed with a deep blue light. As she placed her hand on its surface, the chamber around her disappeared, replaced by a laboratory that seemed to exist in the space between dimensions. Here, the laws of physics were suggestions rather than rules, and she found herself faced with equations that described the very fabric of reality. Meanwhile, Tanaka was drawn to a pedestal that glowed with green light. Her trial took place in an ecosystem that existed on multiple levels of reality simultaneously. She found herself responsible for maintaining the balance between physical and metaphysical life forms, creatures that existed as pure thought and others that were composed of living mathematics. Webb's trial, centered around a pedestal of golden light, placed him in a navigation chamber where space and time were fluid concepts. He had to chart a course through dimensions that folded in on themselves, using instruments that responded to intention rather than physical manipulation. Eric's challenge came from a pedestal of silver light that transported him to a command center where he had to coordinate the actions of beings who existed in different temporal states. Some moved at the speed of thought, others at the pace of geological time, and he had to find ways to synchronize their efforts toward a common goal. Lena's trial was the most complex. The red light of her pedestal enveloped her in a reality where she was simultaneously commanding a ship, governing a planet, and making decisions that affected the development of entire species. She had to balance the needs of individuals against the requirements of evolution, sometimes making choices that seemed cruel but were necessary for greater growth. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time seemed to have no meaning in the architect's city. Each member of the team struggled with challenges that pushed them beyond their previous understanding of what was possible. They failed repeatedly, but each failure taught them something new about the nature of reality and their own potential. "You begin to understand," the architect observed as they slowly mastered their individual trials. "But individual growth is not enough. Now you must learn to work together in ways that transcend your current limitations." The chamber changed again, and the 5 pedestals merged into a single platform that required all of them to work in perfect synchronization. They found themselves responsible for guiding the development of an entire star system, balancing the needs of multiple species while nurturing the growth of new forms of consciousness. "I can't process the quantum calculations fast enough," Sarah gasped, her mind straining to keep up with the flow of information. "Here," Tanaka said, somehow sharing her understanding of biological systems that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "If you think of the quantum states as living ecosystems," Webb added his navigational expertise, helping them understand how the various species could migrate between dimensions to avoid conflicts. Eric provided the leadership structure that allowed them to coordinate their efforts, while Lena made the difficult decisions about which species to prioritize when resources were limited. Gradually, they began to work as a single entity, their individual strengths combining to create something greater than the sum of their parts. The star system under their care began to flourish, with new forms of life appearing that existed in the spaces between physical and metaphysical reality. "Better," the architect acknowledged. "But you still think in terms of individual survival. True transcendence requires sacrifice." The trial changed again, and they found themselves in a scenario where the survival of one species required the extinction of another. There was no middle ground, no compromise solution. They had to choose which form of consciousness would be allowed to continue evolving. "We can't make that choice," Eric protested. "We don't have the right." "You must. This is the nature of evolution. Some forms of consciousness are destined to transcend their current limitations, while others must make way for higher forms of existence. This is not cruelty, it is necessity." The team struggled with the decision for what felt like hours. Each choice they made seemed to condemn countless beings to non-existence, while allowing others to evolve into forms of consciousness that could exist across multiple dimensions. Finally, Lena made the decision that none of them wanted to make. "We choose based on potential for growth, not on emotional attachment," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of the choice. "The species that can transcend their current limitations deserve the chance to do so." "Correct," the architect confirmed, though there was no satisfaction in the mental voice. "This is the hardest truth of evolution. Not all can transcend. Not all should. The role of the architect is to guide the process, not to preserve everything that exists." The trials continued, each one more challenging than the last. They faced scenarios where they had to choose between preserving individual identity and merging consciousness into collective entities. They had to balance the needs of beings who existed in different temporal states. They had to make decisions about the development of entire galaxies, weighing the potential for growth against the cost of change. Through it all, the team grew closer, their individual consciousness beginning to merge in subtle ways. They could sense each other's thoughts, share knowledge instantaneously, and coordinate their actions with a precision that would have been impossible before. "You are beginning to understand what it means to transcend," the architect observed. "But there is one final trial. The most difficult of all." The chamber around them dissolved, replaced by a view of Earth as it had been in their time, blue and green and beautiful, populated by billions of humans who had no idea that their fate was being decided in a city beyond the edge of known space. If you are to become architects yourselves, you must be willing to guide your own species through the same process of selection and evolution. Not all humans will be able to transcend their current limitations. Many will resist the changes that are necessary. Some will have to be left behind. The full implications of what they were being asked to do hit Lena like a physical blow. They weren't just being tested for their own worthiness. They were being prepared to become the agents of humanity's transformation. And that transformation would not be kind to everyone. How many? She asked, though she dreaded the answer. Perhaps 1 in 1,000 will prove capable of true transcendence. The rest will remain in their current dimensional state, living out their natural lifespans while the transcended guide the species toward its ultimate destiny. That's billions of people, Sarah whispered. Yes. And this is why the choice must be made by those who have already transcended their attachment to individual survival. You must be willing to sacrifice the many for the growth of the few. The team stood in silence, contemplating the magnitude of what they were being asked to do. They had spent their lives exploring the unknown, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and capability. But this went far beyond exploration. This was about fundamentally changing what it meant to be human. What if we refuse? Lena asked. Then you will be returned to your ship, your memories of this experience will be altered, and you will live out your lives as explorers in a galaxy that will never know what might have been. Your species will continue on its current path, eventually destroying itself as so many others have done. And if we accept? Then you will become the first human architects, tasked with guiding your species through the same trials you have faced. You will transcend your current limitations, gain the ability to manipulate reality itself, and join the community of beings that exists beyond the boundaries of normal space and time. Lena looked at her team, seeing the same struggle in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. They had come so far, learned so much, grown in ways they never could have imagined. But the price of that growth was higher than any of them had anticipated. We need time to discuss this, she said finally. Time is a luxury you no longer have. The choice must be made now.